Gene Decode is so well known in the disclosure movement, it's quite hard to pin him down these days. He's very busy, but I am delighted that the martial artist, the former military, the person who knows all about the Galactic Federation and the Alliance, is here once again. Welcome, Gene Decode. How are you, my love?
Oh, I'm doing great, Danny. How are you?
I'm so good. It's so good to have you back on my channel. It's been a bit, hasn't it? It's been a couple of months.
Yeah, it's amazing how we used to say in the Navy and submarines, time's fun when you're having flies. But,
Yeah.
yeah, we had some really weird people. They had when you first submerge, you have a few flies in the submarine, and then they die off. But one guy kept flies in a little matchbox, one of the little hard containers, square that he smoked, so he had hard wood matchsticks, and he emptied it out, and he kept the fly in there with little bits of food he had put in there, and he took the wings off of it so it couldn't fly, and he was that was I was like, that's cruel,
I
but
feel sick, Jean.
yeah,
Ooh, that's awful.
he
Ooh.
did the fly. He said he called it a walk. You want to see my walk? I go, your walk? You're stir frying? He goes, no, my walk. And he opened it up and he goes, it doesn't have wings, so it can't fly. It's a walk now.
Oh, oh,
That's military humor.
oh,
Submariners have,
God.
they have a,
The-
a warped sense of humor for a lot, for the most part.
Sounds like it. I won't be going on any of those dating apps.
Yeah.
But well, it's so good to have you back. I'm always so grateful to get any time with you and to get your input into what's happening in the world at large, especially with regards to disclosure of every system. Now, as you shared on our last broadcast, you have literally, physically, in real time, been to space with other military personnel. And you are connected to the Alliance. You're going to tell us what the Alliance is, how they are situated, and you're going to also break down for us the Galactic Federation, what it is, and how it's been, in your opinion, infiltrated.
Yeah. So, you know, I know all of Congress is talking about the Galactic Federation now in the U.S. and due to the disclosure that started, the first drop is pretty much a nothing burger with just, the tic tac flying around kind of videos that they had before. But they will be continuing on, just like with the Epstein files. We had his address book, and then now you have the bigger stuff, and that's on some of the bigger stuff. That's only 2% of the files, and there'll be much more. And then that's 2% of the files as originally calculated. But in containers across the US that he had, like storage facilities and homes, they found more files. So now that Trump has started the disclosure, the and the Congress has seen the higher end stuff, and they've gotten a tour of Area 51 before they tore down the old one, and they're rebuilding a newer one below that now. That's going to be 7 layers deep, not six, but seven, and new tunnels. Elon Musk is doing the tunnels and all that. So, along with that, the Galactic Alliance is helping. So, the non-terrestrial, interterrestrial, infraterrestrial, interdimensionals, all of that are very careful with the terminology used because the deep state uses that all the time against us. So they're very careful with using terminology correctly. There's a galactic alliance and a galactic federation. The difference between a federation and alliance: when countries or worlds join an alliance, they are still autonomous. They join in a like a treaty situation, but they're completely autonomous. Where in a federation, like in the Russia, that's a federation of states, but they've lost some of their autonomy. They belong as part of Russia, the Russian Federation. So you can, if people want to look at the difference, look at what the Russian Federation is and how that works, and you'll get how the Federation of Worlds works. The Alliance of Worlds is different. So the Alliance of Worlds, I trust them. I haven't seen any nefarious or dark stuff happen. Um, with the Federation cleaning out the dumbs, helping clean out the dumbs, the alliances too. But the Federation, they had the Ashtar Command, and 7 years back, the Ashtar Command took about half the dumps that they had cleaned out, the ones they had cleaned out, which was about half the dumps in the U.S. The Ashtar Command broke half the Ashtar Command broke dark and went to the dark side, and they took all those dumps, and the Alliance and the Earth Alliance and the Galactic Alliance and the Guardian Alliance had to retake those dumps. So it was quite a setback back in the day. So I don't completely trust them. It was the Ashtar Command, along with several other groups that part of the Palladians broke with them, and a couple other groups actually broke with the Ashtar Command, and that is calls himself Sananda, Jesus Sananda,
Oh
the
God.
leader of the Ashtar. Yeah, the one that broke. I'm like, yeah, I like you wouldn't see that one coming. You're calling yourself Jesus something or other.
Yeah, Master
Um,
Sananda. A lot of people don't know the relation to that name to Jesus, that the Hindus will use Ananda as part of their name, like Yogananda. That's a really good example of the Ananda part, the blissful add-on. But Master Sananda, it's said that's what the Hindus themselves, the Indians, when he spent time there in India, although so many people deny it, of course, but it's in sacred documents, as you know, that they gave him the name Master Sananda above them all. So that's so interesting. And that's where we get the awful name, which really bothers me, like that new age. There's nothing new age. There's nothing new under the sun. And the CIA tried to psyop that anybody who does a spiritual journey, if they're light language or whatever, they try and get, oh, you're so new age, old tinfoil hat, to try and distract us and make us feel stupid. But you're saying the head of the Ashtar Command literally, actually, in real life, called himself Sananda.
yeah, Jesus Sananda. So, and he has got somebody on over him that's got a name almost like God or something like that. I can't remember it right now because I haven't looked into that for 7 years. But yeah, I do know the Ananda part from Self Realization Fellowship with Yogananda, who
Yeah.
set that up, and it's all over the United States and quite a few places, and there's issues there. I've heard. I don't know about them, but I just heard there's issues, so I don't know about that. But it's pretty much true. If you get any spiritual leader that has a following in the millions or billions, the deep state's going to co-opt them. So if you people are going to be very upset with the Epstein list as it continues to roll out and the files, because there's people in there that are the top spiritual leaders on earth, and some of the very most powerful spiritual leaders on earth are in there and have gone to the island. And so that's coming out, and it's going to upset the apple cart for a lot of people. No, it's going to upset a lot of people pretty heavily. So on the alliance, the I've my contact with the alliance is that about 8 years ago they first came and asked me to appear prior to the Ganymede conference as kind of just a person on the ground that kind of knows and what's going on the ground and under the ground, since I had a fairly good handle on that. So they picked me up, took me up. I had an interpreter and I had a ambassador, and she was a Leonore, a female. Looks like you can see the statues in India, what they look like. They have somewhat of a human-like appearance in the lower half, but they have a lion's head and kind of lion's kind of arm like a bit. But the chest in that for a female is much like a human chest. And they're very, very ferocious fighters and very amazing beings. She's actually in charge of an entire fleet for the Alliance, for the Milky Way. And then my interpreter is about a 9 to 12 foot tall. It depends on how it stretches out. Um, Wind chime. Looks like a wind chime. And then sometimes I also have another a company that looks like a giant tulip plant, you know, our pitcher plant, kind of mixed between the two. So it's an interesting thing. When you go into these conferences, it was so vast. It was in a space folded area from Ganymede that they folded so it can't be interrupted once it starts. It's not in our space time anymore. It's in a space fold. And so once it starts, then there's no leaving or coming or goings. And so I came before they locked it down and stayed uh, till they finished. But they did a time thing where I actually left before they folded it down. So it's so weird. But anyway, you go. The area was so huge, you couldn't even see all the beings that are there. Usually, there's between 2 to 12 representatives, depending on their the way their government works and their sexuality works. Like if you have a regular bi types sexual, I don't mean bisexual, but I mean two sexes, like humans, male and female. But there's like certain reptilian groups that have three sexes. They have what's called a male, a female, and a brood, and it takes all three to procreate. There's ones that have 5, 7, and 12 that I know of. There's some insect types and some plant types that are 12 sexed that various combinations, you don't have to have all 12, but various combinations can procreate together. So you look at what's out there, and humans wants disclosure comes in it, maybe in a decade or two or a century from now. Star Trek is pretty pale. They show some of it kind of like when Q came on, and on several of the issues on Star Trek second generation, there was a gaseous cloud that came after him when he was taken down from being in the queue. He had tortured them, and they were torturing him back because he didn't have his Q-ness anymore. So there are gaseous clouds that are sentient beings. There are a type of very extremely dense gaseous cloud that has to be in a containment system because the beings are so dense that if they were to be in our solar system, the gravitational field well that they create would collapse the system in on itself and create a black hole. If they were to go to Earth, it would create a black hole on Earth. They're so dense. It's like what they call neutronium. If you have compressed matter down to solid neutrons, 1 cubic centimeter of it outweighs our sun, outweighs a red giant. So it would collapse the Earth in on itself and create a black hole. So you have these many, many different kinds of beings. Some are you can't even figure out what you're looking at. And what I call warpies, which are a warp field. They're like a contained warp field, but they're a sentient being. So I mean, it's just humans tend to look at, expecting life to look something like you would expect life to be on Earth, like a plant, an insect, an animal, a reptile, a bird, a fish, something like that. But it's not always the case. I mean, you have sentient music that got so advanced and amazing and so many inputs into it that it gained sentience. And then, some of them ascended, and then you have sentient mathematical, I don't know what you call them, computations. You have energies that are just like the Navajo rugs you see, that vibrating pattern. That's actually what they look like, that pattern. They're vibrating energy fields. And so in this conference, and you have things that are so small you can't even see them. They have like magnification for so the other beings can see them. You have others that are so huge, even from miles away, it's like they tower in the distance. So we tend to think all life humans are, once they label, oh, it's, they know of grays, they know of the reptilians, the various reptilian groups, a few of them, the Ashtar, the Palladian, and a few others, and they expect that that's the norm. It does have somewhat of a standard way life looks in certain octants of the universe. So like if you look at our octant, it tends towards a 5-star appearance, which means 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, like a star. In the blue octant, it tends towards insect life. So a lot of your insectoids, like the praying mantis, etc., Borgia, which are both on the dark side. Um, Especially the Borgia, they are insect. Borgia are like a scarab kind of creature. So that's a little bit about that. Back to you, Danny.
Oh my God, that's just mind-blowing. So, those that don't know, you mentioned Ganymede, and Ganymede is one of Jupiter's moons where it's known there is an international spaceport. I guess the thing that people could kind of reference is the Men in Black film, where the two main characters in their black suits are walking through this spaceport and seeing all manner of alien or ET or other being or humanoid, or would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. That's a good start. And when they end the movie, in one of them, it opens. They have the it's a galaxy, I think, inside the cat's collar, a little ball, a glass ball. The galaxy's in the cat's little glass ball around its neck. And that's again, the aspect of size and things that humans hold on to a lot, I found, where you have at the end of the movie, you know, the one agent opens up the locker and Smith looks in there, uh, Will Smith, and all hell, these little tiny guys, all hell, and he's
Yeah.
not sick, because they're worshiping the guy, and he goes, "You're very anchored into, like being a human," is paraphrasing, and human conceptions. You have no idea. And then the movie ends, and you see a locker open up, and they're playing with our universe. These giant, not aliens, I guess you call them, are playing marbles, and each marble has a universe in it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's a long time since I've seen that film. Maybe I should revisit it. But it's
Yeah.
good to kind of have an image of some of the different elements, again, like the energy beings or the plasma beings, or there's so many, and it's so great that you've seen them. What was the name of the female lioness type being well, you didn't say a Lyran, did you? What did you call her?
Leonore.
A Leonore.
Uh-huh.
Can you spell that for us?
Yes. Leonor.
Okay. And when did you first come across a Leonore and where are they from?
They used to help a lot in the Devil Wars, which you can see painted on the Imperial Palace in Bangkok, Thailand. They paint the history, and you can see the paintings of the Devil Wars back when humans on Earth were all the different types of humans still existed here. You had green humans, black humans, white humans, red humans, yellow humans, blue humans, and those two, and the ginger types. You had seven types of different type of looking human beings. The green and the blue had to go off world. They were hunted down and almost made extinct, so they left the world. And fortunately for the Alliance, having some in there still, they were able to get two to help open up the Golden Dome technology for the Earth Alliance, the White Hats, under as the kind of the figurehead as Trump. The world looks at it as the leader, and he is pretty much of a really very good leader on things. He's really good at making the art of the deal, Sun Tzu's art of war, and so an interview I did yesterday, they were upset about what Trump's saying, and I says, because you don't understand Trump talk. He's using the art of war. So we can go into that if you'd like later, but the Leonore have been helping with another species during the Devil Wars, long, long thousands of years ago, with a group called the Garuda, which look like kind of like a giant chicken, but very fierce, you know.
A
And yeah,
fierce chicken.
yes, a giant, 6 foot tall, giant, fierce chicken.
Oh my God. What color?
Oh, just like chickens, they come in all colors.
Oh my God, that's crazy. So explain to us, if you don't mind, why personnel on Earth selected you to be one of the very few, right? Very few that legitimately physically went on a craft, and what did the craft look like, and did you have to train for it? Give us a bit more of that kind of detail, please.
Well, I guess because of the fact that I had been out, from my death experience, I had been out there and seen most of everything all the way up to eighth density. I had encounters on my return trip with certain beings and, stars, and stars are living. Um, Specifically, I stopped because there was twin stars being born in a stellar nursery, and it was so, I love watching children being born. It's always a beautiful time, and I was like, "Oh, congratulations!" So let's say congratulations to the stars involved in the birthing of those twin stars. It was beautiful, and all the singing and joyful noise. And then, so I had some knowledge of what's out there. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to get upset that, certain species like the Alpha Dracos don't smell particularly good. And there are fifth column Alpha Draco that were there, which at first I didn't know there was a fifth column out until I met those two. And I thought they were in detention to be, had been forced to capitulate and give information, but the fifth column had actually formed at that time, and they were actually helping the alliance. And the fifth column is now larger than the rest of the Draco. Uh, the regular Draco on the dark side now is actually bigger, the fifth column. So when I met those two as a male and female, I was kind of taken back. I was like, step back, And of course, there were the original inhabitants of Earth before humanity and mankind were here, which is the raptors. And that's, they're very like the Draco, very telepathic. The Draco did not do that. They're so powerful it can really damage you if they get in your head. So they don't. At least those two didn't. And the raptors also are, and it's a little disturbing when they still look at you and go, "Oh, you look so delicious." You can hear that in there. There's a little salivation going on. It's a little disturbing,
Oh my
but
God.
their queen had remote viewed the future and saw that if they didn't side with humanity, they'd be wiped out. And of course, they had long-standing issue with the Alpha Draco because they had hybrided the giant carnivorous during the time of the dinosaurs on Earth. They had genetically engineered the T Rexes and some of the other giant carnivores that didn't exist before they came here. And so to hunt the raptors down. So the raptors had a long-standing, kind of feud or whatever you want to call it, situation between them and the Alpha Draco anyway. So it wasn't a big leap for them to join the Galactic Alliance and the Earth Alliance and all of that.
That's so fascinating. I basically myself had a theory because I know each individual human has a job to do, and that's really figure out and think what they think the truth is about everything. It's an individual, beautiful soul discovery, energy field, whatever you want to call it. And I decided that the dinosaurs were in large part a making up, and actually it was dragons that were here. So it's interesting to hear your take on actually seeing raptors. Velociraptors would be the full name, correct?
Yes, and like you said, all of the dinosaurs, I remember lifetimes from that time, are matriarchal. Their society is matriarchal, much along the line of an elephant uh, group, where you have the oldest mother, and then she's the head of that group. And the males kind of, once they get of age, leave on their own. So they're not pretty much with the rest of the group. So it's that same way with the dinosaurs. So the dinosaurs, like the whole middle part of the US 150, 60, 70 million years ago was an inland sea, freshwater. The continents were all one piece. There wasn't broken apart continents. The Earth was about 52% of its current size. And you had, due to the spin of the Earth and the torque, it created long S shaped seas, which are now the Mid Atlantic, Mid Pacific, the ridges. And so it was inevitable that it would break apart, but not catastrophically as it did. That was due to the war between Atlantis and Lemuria, the War of Gilgamesh, and it fractured the earth into the pieces. And the torque as it spun caused the continents to spin apart and the magma to come up from underneath from inside the mantle. And they moved to where they are today, minus about 40 feet. They moved another 40 feet in the last 135 million years. So if you look at the bottom of the oceans of the world, they're all volcanic.
Yeah.
And none of the rock is older than 160 million years. And that's just the part where the capital of Atlantis was near um, Thule, which was near, not Atlantis, I'm sorry, Lemuria, which was near the Guam, and that's where the Marianas Trench is. That's where the capital was. They burned it down, and that's where the first crack started till it went through the crust of the earth. And it caused the continents. And plus, there was 100 miles of water beneath the crust, too. And that shut up, and so it rained for 40 days. This is not the Noah flood. That's later on. That's the Younger Dryas extinction event. So that was also caused by non-terrestrials, by in this case by the Draco. And so this one came as the continents moved apart. You got the seas and the oceans, which are all, you know, the ocean floors are all about 135 million years, except that one place off of Malaysia, from Guam to Malaysia, which is the remnants of where Lemuria was. And then a piece of it is Antarctica, and the other piece of it is Atlantis, what's left of Atlantis. So, they at that time the dinosaurs on the middle part of what's now the United States. If you look at the Front Range area from like Wyoming down to New Mexico, that was bordering the ocean, and there was just a little bitty hills there. It weren't the giant Rocky Mountains that we have today. And what's called the Morrison Fold was an area that when it fell apart, the continents ripped, it flipped over as that ocean drained. It was a hydraulic effect, and it jumped upwards as the seas, the inland freshwater seas drained. That lifted up and it flipped over these red rocks, red sandstone and white sandstone, what they call Wingate and Morrison sandstone. And it created what's in Colorado and Denver called the Red Rocks. And that's where they built, the amphitheater to have concerts and stuff. And if you go on the other side of the Morrison Fold above Morrison, Colorado, between Morrison and Denver, on the plain side, you'll see Diplodocus footprints. And on the other side, on the mountainside, towards the Rocky Mountains, on the eastern side, so western side, I'm sorry, you'll see what a cut that's removed rock, and you'll see Brachiosaurus pockmarks where the foot went through the sand because they're big and heavy, about 8 feet down. And you don't see the footprints anymore because in about 1960, they Smithsonian came and cut that rock out and took it to under the Smithsonian, because in that rock, and I remember my father, we used to come down or over to Colorado and different places all over backpacking, and we were driving through there, we stopped and saw that, and he was showing it. Said, these are Brachiosaurus footprints, and on the other side there we'll see Diplodocus, and and beside the Brachiosaurus was human footprints side by side. You're talking 170 million years ago.
Mm.
And so, I had already been told that, humans have at the most been around a million years by, school. And I told my dad, something wrong with what I've been told in school. They're lying. He goes, what do you mean? Human footprints with a brachiosaurus that haven't been on Earth for over 100 million years. So humans were here 100 million years ago. And he goes, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. So the reason I said it is because in a lifetime, that was my pet Brachiosaurus. And I was walking it along the inland sea back that time. That's how come I knew how many millions of years ago it was. So, I had that. It was a really nice lifetime. And I would write her. And she was really sweet. She'd lower her head down to the ground, and I would kind of, climb up there as best I could. Usually I'd get up from the tail and walk all the way up the back. It was easier. It's a long trip, but it's easier. So, the history of the world and all that is, and the way the world has developed is not at all what they tell you. I cover all that on my website. There's decodes on that, and I have the Hollow Earth and Expanding Earth on Rumble as well, if people are interested in knowing the sequence of events and what occurred and why.
Yeah, everyone. I mean, it's such a big question, and there are so many theories, of course. And everything needs to be firmly established now at this time because it's our wealth, it's our history, and it needs to be like put right, into the field and correct. Um, Stepping back to the craft and the alliance that you connected to, going with the beings, going to the conference on Ganymede, being part of the space fold, which is just fascinating. What was the situation of leaving Earth to get there? What was the craft? What did it look like? Or was it a jump room you went into? Or how did you get there? Are you there?
It was a small kind of craft shaped, but it was more pure energy, so you could kind of see through it. But it was kind of like putting two leaves together, gluing the edges, and then blowing it up a little. So it looks like a leaf shape, like a maple leaf on the Canadian flag a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the walls of the craft were semi-transparent. They're kind of translucent, and they glowed. And once it lifted off, and then it was just blink your eyes and you're there. It just been space time and you're there. So
Yeah.
coming back, I asked if we could go slower as we got towards certain planets and Earth and things, so I could see things, because I do. It's beautiful out there, and I do like to see it.
Yeah. What was the most mind-blowing, if you could even pick one, from space or solar system?
In our solar system.
Hmm.
Well, the first time when I came back on my death experience, of course, we learned in school that they downgraded Pluto to a planetoid. It was Pluto and Chidron used to be one piece, and they were broken in half in a war with the dark side. And there was another planet that was orbiting in the corona of the sun, a giant planet that's nearly the size of Jupiter. It's called Vulcan. It was actually discovered, I think, in 1817 by a mathematician as figuring out the perturbations of Mercury and Venus's orbits. And he calculated it out, and then later it was actually visually seen. So it's much like you see in Star Trek because it's in the corona of the sun, that it's very hot and dry and all of that, but they've got a system where they can live there. But the beings that live there, aren't like humanoid. They can take extreme temperatures and gravity as well. So that's why you have to have a lot of beings with containment, because they have to have that heavy gravity, or they have to have that severe heat, um, or they can't live on Earth because it's freezing cold to them. you know.
Wow, amazing. I want to tell you a story about Camp Pendleton. I don't know whether you've heard it before, and see if you've seen these kinds of beings that I'm going to describe to you. So I was driving along from Dana Point back down to San Diego. This is around 2003 or four, and my window is open a little bit. And I'm driving not a car low to the road, but a truck thing. It was a Mercedes ML3. I've forgotten what it was called, but just like a SUV, they call them in America. Okay, an SUV. And driving along, going through Camp Pendleton, which, as you know, is just acres and acres of mountains. You know, it's a military base, pitch black, no lights, and the ocean's on your right. And there's tons of cars, as always, through there, so busy. And I look up and I see all these green lights darting around. So I go, oh yeah, helicopters. I've driven some planes and whatever. So a helicopter is green. So I'm looking up and all these lights are dancing around, and then there's just so many of them. And then it strikes me that why aren't people stopping their cars to look at this absolute glorious mass of swarming green lights. I don't get it. And I'm looking at them and I'm connecting and I'm feeling something. And so I threw a thought out and I said, I can see you. Then all of a sudden, they froze in place. A few went to each other, kind of communed, it felt like or looked like, and then one went zip. And oh my God, Jean, it was beside my car. I shit myself is an understatement. It was about half the size of my car. It looked like a giant wasp. Not so much a bee, more like a wasp. It had these weird dangly legs, black little legs. Its body, it had green and yellow stripes on it. It had a really funny, almost like a Pekingese cat. No, what are those really funny looking cats? The Chinesey cats, not Siamese, the other ones. Like, you know,
Persian, Persian.
Persian. Yeah, Persian. Like a squishy Persian black face. And it was beside the car, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, sorry, 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 please go away, please go away. I couldn't believe it. And it literally made a very low humming, like a buzz. I'm like, this is insane. And then it went, and it was straight back up there again. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell was that? So it was like a giant flying bug that caught my thought and just came beside the car. I got the impression that these beings were watching something happening at Camp Pendleton underground, which is where most of the base exists, and and you can correct me on that. And I felt like they weren't happy with whatever was happening at that time at Camp Pendleton. Now, have you ever seen anything like that or know of any military technology like that?
Now, those are beings.
Yeah.
Those aren't craft. Those are beings, living beings that I saw at the Ganymede conference.
Oh, you saw something like that at the Ganymede conference?
Yeah, those are living beings.
Oh, I love it.
At least the wasp bat. I call it a wasp. I call it a wasp bat because it looks like a wasp and a cat. So it's a
Right.
wasp bat.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, you're the first person because I've asked several people who claim they've been off planet or they've had interaction with other beings, which millions of us have. You know, it's not like it's the rarest thing in the world. It's more rare to get on a craft, physically get on a craft, and not astral project, as a lot of people that tell their testimonies they're astral projecting, but to physically
Mhm.
go on a craft to actual Ganymede near Jupiter is quite extraordinary. So, and I'm glad you've seen something like that and can confirm that for me because I know I've seen it physically. It was physical. I wasn't in La La Land. I was driving back to San Diego. So, you know, I think more people need to be telling their stories and giving their testimonies and not giving a hoot what anyone thinks because who is anyone to deny anyone's reality? Um, I wanted to take a step back to the Ashtar Command. I mean, I find them all so incredibly dull. I'm not going to lie, because of all the wars and the dominance and the need to, you know, be the greatest in the universe and all the backstabbing. Because as above, so below. You've got a ton of asshats up there misbehaving, trying to hurt Earth, trying to dominate Earth. I'm not okay with it. I'm tired of the Anunnaki. I couldn't care less about any single god they talk about. You know, the Roman gods and the Greek gods and the Anunnaki. And as far as I'm concerned, they're all misbehaving. And I wanted to get your insight. Ashtar Command, and there's another one, isn't there? An Ashtar something or other? Isn't there two groups of Ashtar somethings?
There's another group called the Anshar.
The Anshar. Okay.
They're inside the Earth. They're from the future, and they're now, I think, put themselves on stasis. They came here a long time ago from the future because their timeline was starting to, people in their group were disappearing and structures and things because their timeline was disappearing. So they came to try to affect humanity telepathically in these like egg pod things they get into to do and behave certain ways to help maintain their timeline. But now they've gone into stasis because their timeline's all but gone. So for my understanding, the way I interpret that is what timeline do I know that's gone in, say, 100 years from now or 200 years from now or whatever. And what timelines do we have on Earth right now? Well, we have two. We have the golden timeline, which is what we're on, and we have the other timeline, which the deep state was finding out was going away as of 2012, that they could only have a very small probability of being able to maintain it for any length of time. And so after 2012, they couldn't, and that's the Armageddon line. Well, so that tells me they were originally from that future, and that future is gone.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I saw some images recently of these incredibly hideously ugly looking things, and they look like grays, but they've got more human faces. And
Uh-huh.
I'm so fighting the idea that these were a hybrid combination of humans from the future and grays blending and merging, because I'm not accepting that I'm going to end up looking like that. I'm way too vain, Jean. I'm not having it. What are your thoughts on that?
The Greys, actually, the group you're talking about, were helped by the Alliance, the Earth Alliance, because they came back in another future because they had no longer the ability to clone themselves anymore. They couldn't continue their species because they didn't procreate anymore the way we do,
Yeah.
and they had been cloning and transferring their consciousness, much like the in Stargate series, where the Greys are the good guys, but they had been doing it and they had lost viability, and they were trying to get to an older rendition of themselves because every time you modified the genome with what they thought were improvements, they didn't stave the original. So if you keep copying a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, like in the old days you had a VCR tape, and you copy it, and you give somebody a copy, and then they copy it, and they give somebody a copy, and pretty soon you could barely see anything. You could hear it, but you couldn't see much of anything. It's all faded out. Pretty soon you couldn't even hear it anymore. So once you can't hear it, it's no longer viable. You can't hear it, you can't see it, it's gone. And that's where they were. They were a dying species. So they came back in time to get where they originally came from, us. And so they said, okay. And they said, they warned the Earth Alliance, do not go down this path. And there's another group that came and said, do not go down the path of incorporating technology heavily into you,
Mm,
because it's a very, very dangerous path and it leads to destruction in our case.
hmm.
And so these different species, several different species, are from our various possible futures that now don't exist anymore. So they came back. And so the Earth Alliance helped the Greys, the one you're talking about, to taller Greys than the drone Greys. Um, they're called the tall Greys, kind of simple. But they helped them to get to the point they could reproduce, procreate like they were before they started cloning, like we do sexually,
Mm,
sexual reproduction. So they're now viable and they're not going to go down that road again.
mm. Okay. The Ashtar Command, I know that's the title. You said they went kind of renegade in the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, for those that don't know that term. What did you mean by that?
Well, you had a faction, over half of it, that joined the dark side, and all the dumps that they had taken, the Ashtar Command cleaned out for the Alliance. That dark faction took them all. And so the remaining light faction is in the Federation. But that's why I don't like the Federation. I don't trust it particularly. We've got quite a few commands and different groups in there um, that have had issues and had parts defect to the dark side. So in that, they had to retake those. So now, with the help of the Golden Dome, the big stuff is being taken out too. So like Area 51, this month, they took that completely and destroyed the old Area 51, and they're rebuilding a newer, bigger Area 51 underneath it. And with tunnels that are much more advanced and much more advanced technology with Elon Musk's help and other groups, including the Golden Dome, and connecting it to all of the newer dump systems that they have, like Redstone Arsenal, um, the upgrade and redo of Eglin Air Force Base after China Lake was decimated because of the spark grid. They cleaned and just liquefied it, and they built a dump underneath that because they just liquefied it. They turned it into they nuked it, so it's you know melted rock, so it's gone, and crushed rock. And so far beneath that, they built a new system in there, connecting that with the Presidio, um, and most of the California dump system that is completely cleaned out, almost all of it. S4, most part of that is also Groom Lake is being rebuilt underneath. Um, Dulce is being rebuilt underneath, and they're cleaning that. That's still ongoing, though. That's not completely done yet, but they're building underneath it and going up at the one that's left, what's left of the one above it that's being burnt out. People had seen fires there about 3 or 4 months ago, and that was ongoing and up to a year. It's a long battle. That's one of the ones that's they have jump gates and portals and all kinds of stuff in there.
That's Dulce.
Dulce, yeah.
Yeah. So always feel, oh, just so, when you see the worst violent film in the world, and every time I hear that word, Dulce base, the military base, I get those feelings from it. And, I've heard some horrible things, and I've heard awful things about every single military base, every single one. There was a story once where somewhere in one of the levels of Area 51, which is also the Groom Lake area, isn't it? And is that also what they call S4, which you just mentioned?
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe that's all that area.
Yeah, that's what I was told too. Uh,
Oh, wait. Is
five,
S4? I think S4 might be. I'll have to look into it.
yeah, it gets confusing. There's
It does.
5-1 and 5-2, Area 51, Area 52. But my point, there was a room full of artificial wombs that were breeding, for the
Yes.
breeders, yeah, oh my God. Yeah, just absolutely horror stories that you can't even imagine could exist, but unfortunately have and do. And you mentioned the corruption and the infiltration of the Galactic Federation. So, which Galactic Federation are you specifically speaking about, and what do you know that's happened, please?
Well, the Galactic Federation is the one that's had all the issues. The Alliance hasn't had any. That's why I much more trust the Alliance, along with the Guardian Alliance, which hasn't had any. The Council of Seven, which is now the Council of Nine, hasn't had. They've had groups that have left, but they left not by defection. They just said we're done. And then you also have the Infinite Alliance of Free Worlds, which is across timelines. So you have, other beings from other timelines, because the deep state was also jumping to other timelines, what is called sliding. They call it sliding from the TV series Sliders, and going to parallel timelines and creating issues. So, and creating issues here too. So, for example, Chernobyl and Fukushima, the reason they had the situation occur that they did is when you're running a reactor, you're calculating how much nuclear waste material you're getting, and the temperatures and all that are very precise. If you miss up, you can go hypercritical. So what they did is the deep state put waste materials from the reactors in Fukushima and Chernobyl case on another timeline, transferred it, portaled it into the reactors here. So the calculations of how much radioactivity you're creating, and how much bombardment you're creating, and how much activity you're creating is completely skewed now. And so they lost control of the systems. And we know the result of what happened. So because of that, you've got groups from other parallels, the alliances there, that are joining the alliance here. For example, one, which is, I mentioned the Deva Wars earlier on, they had a treaty with the Cabal, and the Cabal broke it when they were getting cleaned out so badly. And so they took a ship from Antarctica and went to the 10 kingdoms of the Deva, the 10 timelines that contain the Deva kingdoms, and to raid an armory. Like they're not going to know. I mean, their technology is so advanced, it's like magic. But, the ancients thought it was magic. And so they were completely destroyed, all except one ship they crippled and sent it back to Antarctica, telling, don't mess with us again. And the treaty is now done, and we're coming. And so a big part of what's helping clean the deep bases, along with the Agarthans and the Shimbalans, are the Deva, like the various Deva kingdom beings that people know, that you've seen in movies, fairies and elves and dwarves and all of that kind of stuff. That's real on
Oh,
those times.
so do you mean the spirit Davers?
Yeah, all of those things that people say are not real, they're from another series of timelines.
Yeah. Okay. I thought the Deva, I thought you were saying Deva Wars, as in because that's another word that the Indians or the Hindus would use for love, Deva, Guru Deva, Deva. So you're talking about the nature sprites, the fairies and such like nature
Yes,
spirits. Oh
yes.
my gosh, amazing. This is so fascinating. It's just like just dropping this here and dropping that there. But it's so important that we get all these drops from you so then we can just chew it up and think about what we think about what you're sharing. And for some, it's going to just really put those puzzle pieces together. I had a theory about the sun for a very long time. My theory is that the sun is not hot, it's actually a portal, and it only creates heat when elements of it and its gaseous layers hit our Earth, hit the ionosphere here. That creates heat, and that's what heats our planet. That was my theory because I know that there are countless craft coming in and out of the sun. They're not burning up. I worked in the satellite industry for years. We're sending up satellites. They're not burning up. They're working with the reflectors, for the sun's energy, the sun's light to run their batteries or their telemetry in part. But yeah, so what is your understanding of what the sun actually is yourself?
Well, I go by the electric universe theory, which for me is a fact, because you look at a lot of things about the sun. The first off, if we go to the inside the corona of the sun, it's like a 10 million, it's about, I think, a million degrees or something Kelvin. Now, if you go out in space a million miles, it's 10 million degrees Kelvin. It's hotter away from the source, which means that can't be the source. It can't be nuclear, number one. So what you have, and they could see these with telescopes, Birkeling currents, which are spiraling negative and positive currents that go from star to star. And what you have is filaments that conduct plasma energy from star to star. And as it goes and it starts collapsing down on the ley lines of the universe, which, just like planets like us, we have ley lines. Ours are called chakras and meridians and acupuncture pathways, channels, meridians. And so in the case of the universe, they go through and they connect all the stars and planets. So once you get a confluence of lines and the energy's coming down these lines, as it gets closer and closer, it gets denser and denser until it gets visible and it ignites into a visible spectrum. So that's the corona of the sun. And as you go down, that energy is then going to go back outwards because it's ignited. It's going to go outwards because as you go down, they've looked in sunspots and they've looked 100 miles down. 100 miles down, it's nearly room temperature, like 70, 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're like, huh. So scientists aren't telling people this. So the craft that are going in the sun, they can go into a sunspot, number one, but they're also in their own containment, like the latest craft that went around the backside of the moon, the same way we went to the moon the first time. It's not in that tinfoil ship they made. It's in a craft that was like what the NAZIs had, that Maria Orsic channel that were sent to her by the Aldebarans, are what the Victor Schauberger developed, that creates a anti-gravity field around the craft where it can go beyond the speed of light and instantaneously. And so it's contained in its own little warp field. And once it's in a warp field, it's in its own space-time. So it means it can do 90-degree turns at thousands and thousands of miles an hour. It can go one way and suddenly go the other way, 180-degree reverse. And the occupants feel no acceleration, deacceleration effects at all because they're not in our space-time completely. They're mostly in a different angular displacement of dimensionality. And so because of that, they can go into a sun and have no effect whatsoever, even through the corona. They can also, and this is what the Montauk Project was about in the Philadelphia experiment to start with, was if you start phasing a craft in time from T1 to T2, at 45 degrees, you become radar invisible. Past that, you actually start to get total invisibility, what's called stealth. At a certain point, you actually go outside our space-time entirely, and then you can go beyond the speed of light and all kinds of things, and the speed of time. You can go either direction down time's arrow. You can either go back in time or forward in time. And of course, all space travel is time travel. You have to put your space-time coordinates in for when you want to get there, because you look at a star, like you look at Andromeda, it's millions of light years from here. Well, if you're going to travel at the speed of light instantly and get there, you're millions of years on the speed of light into the past. What you're seeing now coming from there left millions of years ago. So if you're going to go to where the time that the light you're seeing is left, you're going to be millions of years ago. But if you're going to go there now, you're millions of years into the future of the light that left there. So if you're looking, with regular visual optics and other types of X-rays and infrared optics and that, at a star system Andromeda, and you're seeing a civilization, they say, come join us and come and visit us. And you're using optics. You're not using like communication with neutrinos, for example, which are, faster than light. Then you would wind up getting there, and that civilization may be hundreds of million years gone. It could be long gone. So you got to put your space-time coordinates of when and where you want to go, not just where, but when.
It's so fascinating. And it's great that I can, kind of converse with you and give you my theory on the cool sun, and you back up with what you understand to be true with a heater, space containment, exactly, different densities, different gravities. And yeah, it's so fascinating because unless we've
Yeah.
been there, it's very difficult for us here to really trust. And then, as far as science, for me, I'm like, okay, when people are using the same mathematics that we've been trained to believe, like I nearly wasted 10 years of my life becoming an astrophysicist, coming out of the space industry and satellite manufacture. Then I realized how much we're lied to on the true mathematics of most things. And that if we're going to measure everything by the speed of light or the speed of sound, we got to look at the information we've been told is true, and figure out what is actually true, because so much of what we've been told all our lives is complete bullshit, isn't it?
Yes. So, if you're interested in that, I think the theory, the formulas and everything, and they give a whole list of things why the sun cannot be nuclear and why it has to be electrical. Is look at the electric universe and the group of scientists that I feel that that's the correct model for the universe, because you can't even get with gravitational models and nuclear. You cannot get some of the galaxy types that we see. You can only do it with the electric model. So it makes a lot more sense. There's no discrepancies. Back in the day when they didn't know about plasma and they knew a fourth state of matter plasma. They didn't. They just knew of it. They had a theory about it, but they didn't really know. So they put ideas and things, but as they're learning, but what they're really with science is always constantly changing. So you know you look at what they believe is things and what, for example, AI, they had AI 30 years ago in the military sector. They had space travel. Um, the US went to the moon and Mars with Tesla stuff in 1903. you know, Tesla was jumping timelines, and he actually did jump timelines, and it's why we have the alliance and all of that, and why we're winning because he actually jumped timelines and then came and set himself up to come to the U.S. Told his parents, told Ingersoll Lockwood to tell his parents to make sure he came to the U.S. And then he came over to our timeline as Edward Snowden. So what he left behind, yeah, yeah. Snowden is brilliant beyond comprehension, like Tesla. Um, what the movie is telling you is total farce. Like you said, they're lying to you beyond belief. If you're trying to outrun the cabal, the last place you're going to fly through is Hong Kong, where they control everything. The CCP and the Black Hand control everything there in the Dragon families. I mean, you're not going to go through Hong Kong, and you misspelled the name or something, and oh, come on. The level of surveillance they have today, there's absolutely no way that's possible whatsoever. So he was traded, and now he's going to be brought back soon, and Trump gives him a full pardon, but it was traded to Putin, so Putin would join the alliance, Putin 2.0. So he's central casting along with Xi, who is, Xi 2.0 as well, and Elon Musk 2.0. So we had a lot of Musk is not central casting though, but Xi is. So the recent trip to China was, much like the King of England visiting the U.S. It's a complete change in the world stage of how things are oriented in which countries are allied and which countries are against each other. And it was Trump put to Xi what is called MADE. MAD is mutually assured destruction with nuclear weapons or other high-end technologies. MADE is mutually assured economic destruction. So now that we control the Straits of Hormuz and Venezuela, which was where most of their oil was coming from, and many other things that they needed, as well. They're now going to get their oil from Alaska, Louisiana, Texas, etc. And so they're trading with the U.S. on that. And so, Elon has worked, and all the other big CEOs went to meet Xi because they're looking at incorporating the CCP is in a complete state of crumbling and falling. It's not going to be long that China will break into pieces, probably 10 pieces. There's 10 provinces that are in absolute rebellion. They can't stop. They also have way less population than they're telling you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not much more than the U.S.
Yeah.
anymore. We're about 375, I think, somewhere in there, 300 million. They're probably 373. We're probably 350, 340 now due to the jab
Mm.
and the last pandemic. And they're probably around 400 million. That's
I mean,
it.
it was a great kind of war ploy, like, don't come to China, we will crush you. But in the meantime, in my understanding or my opinion and my thinking, is that the China has been used as the global model for the cabal, whatever you want to call those dirtbags, for the rest of the world, for the surveillance, for the FEMA camps, for the 15-minute cities, for the shutdown, for all of that. I went into a supermarket yesterday and there was no one on the main till. Nobody would come. And so I took my shopping bag and I put it over the camera, while you have to check out because it's just so rude. It's just in your face camera. And when I walked in, I just pulled my hood down and, it didn't. And I did that once before in the same place and the gates wouldn't open. And when I put the bag over the surveillance camera, well, it wouldn't take my card. So I was testing it, for the dominance. But I've always said for a long time that China, it's obvious to those that are aware, but not to everyone yet. China was the blueprint. China was the model for the rest of the world. How do we shut down a whole nation? Now they're looking at shutting down the whole world. But again, failing and will continue to fail. And that's my absolute, total and utter belief. Like you said, the Kabbalah crumbling, everywhere. What do
Yeah.
you think is the biggest, most obvious sign of their utter failure and their demise?
The King of England 2.0, because the original died from Kuru, coming to the US and giving us sovereignty and giving the kingship to Trump.
But,
Uh,
but America doesn't have a royal family, so how does that work?
It does now.
But nobody wants a king. We're all over it. I'm so done with royalty. You mentioned Kuru. A lot of people don't know. That's when you've been such a cannibal that your brain, you get it resembles Parkinson's, doesn't it, Kuru?
Yes, what it does is if you eat human brains too much, there's a development where the human brain gets spongiform, like in mad cow disease. And the person, much like, goes insane and loses her memory. And you saw it with Merkel. She was shaking. And, that's one of, and also with Hillary, she was like doing these ticks and like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then,
Yeah.
her head would go side, oh, that's really cold, trying to cover it up. And then she collapsed outside during the 2016 election and was put in the van and taken to Chelsea's apartment. And they got, a fresh child there for her to get the stuff she needed to bring her back from the dead.
Oh my God. You mentioned Angela Merkel. Again, one of the Muppets on the world stage. They put themselves there. People say she's the bloodline of Hitler. Is that true?
Yeah,
Angela Merkel?
yeah.
And who was
Her,
that?
she, her and two others in
Yeah.
the European.
Uh, there was another prime minister in England. I was living in America at the time, so I don't pay attention anyway, but there was a woman prime minister here.
Yes,
Um, something
yes,
May, her. They
yes.
said she was also bloodline because again, people really got to
Yeah,
know.
there's a picture of the three girls together,
Yeah,
all when they're young, about 10 years old or something.
right.
And yeah,
Right. And then they've probably come up in the Young Leaders, the World Economic Forum, the Young Leaders program, as most of the world leaders have.
yes,
And Hitler, I think it was his mum had an affair with a Rothschild. So he's a
yes,
Rothschild. Yeah. And it's so
yeah,
important for people to really do the digging and see who's a second cousin. We got the Hungarian president who's related to Netanyahu. And so the more you see the absolute farce, like me and David Icke, we were talking about it. He was on my channel earlier, as I told you. I got off the live chat so I could come and be with you, because I'm just interviewing so many incredible legends right now, doing my part to put the truth into the field so everyone can get their piece of the code that they are in the matrix to understand what's going on, for them. But yeah, it's just absolutely fascinating. And it's a horror show. It's such a disappointment how we've come to this point. But now we're awakening to it. So now we can do something about it, right?
yes. And, most people, if you're speaking of the, well, since you said, I'll say it, Hitler, um, he was actually born, his mother's first husband was Schicklgruber, and that's his father. His real name is Schicklgruber, Adolf Schicklgruber. And then she remarried a man named Hitler because it had to be a name that would fit the prognostications of that.
Notre
Uh,
Dame. Nostradamus.
Not Nostradamus, yes,
Oh,
because he
wow.
was cabal. He was cabal, and they want all his stuff to come true. So when you're controlling the events of the world, you can make somebody's prognostications come through true in the future because you're controlling world events. And so he wasn't a seer or prognosticator at all. It just he was in the cabal, and so they make it look like he is and make all this stuff come true because they're making it come true. And so he was actually born Schicklgruber and to fit the prognostications of Nostradamus, they made him Hitler,
That's so ridiculous. You know,
isn't it?
the story of Nostradamus, there's terrible suffering. His wife dies, his child dies, he is a wretched soul. He's going into these trance-like states in his grief, and he's scrying with water or a black mirror, etc. And then writing these quatrains, which is four sentences of a prophecy, as you well know. Some people don't, so we'll give them the grace of sharing briefly. And that he predicted there would be a man called Hisler, and it became Hitler. I mean, it's so stupid. So what you're saying there to me, if we map that now on the timeline we're on, that's like the bloody Simpsons. Where they've manipulated the Simpsons, going, oh, the Simpsons was so clever. No, it's programming. It's predictive programming. They knew what was happening.
Yes.
They're putting it there. Oh my God, these people are so moronic. It's just so embarrassing. I mean, is there a
Yeah.
decent one amongst them? Seriously.
Yeah. And yeah, there's one or two. That's about it.
Would you name
Um,
them for us, please, sir?
well, there's a Rothschild that's on the good side.
Really?
Yes, not well known. And but if you think he was thinking about the fact he was looking into this black mirror, if you know the history of that, that's pretty dark. That's witchcraft of a dark style. Looking in black mirrors is usually how you get possessed by demonics.
I
It's not
mean,
a good way to go. It's like using a Ouija board, you know, you're opening yourself up to some pretty nasty stuff.
and yet every day we look into a black mirror. Every single person with a phone, it's a black mirror.
Yes,
It's deliberate. It's deliberate.
yes, indeed.
It's so
That's true.
crazy. It's so
Mhm.
crazy. Oh my goodness. Well, people have to take more care, because some of the dark, let's say the dark leaders, the host bodies that were hosting the demonics that they share their bodies with, there's a lot more spare demonics doing the rounds looking for more host bodies right now. Like I
Yeah,
told you, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm very clean, and I'm staying that way for as long as I can. And because you can never say never, we've all drunk and we've smoked in the past and we've done different things at different times. But I think it's really important for people to focus on the vessel, get it as clean as you can, detox. As much as you can, and try not to indulge in like drugs, weed, smoking, cigarettes, alcohol especially, and getting drunk so you're out of your box and your vessel's completely vulnerable, right?
yeah. So, you know, the marijuana things actually, there was a scientist that said that it actually does take chunks out of your soul. So that one, is pretty serious. But I agree, keep your vessel as clean as possible. I've been working now for quite a long time to clean up my thoughts and now my speech too. So I don't mean vulgarity, be more than that. I mean much more than that. So if you look at the way you speak and the things you say, if you really look at it, it's not very good. If you really think about what you're saying, like, in the US, is let's hit that. You're going to punch it, you know, or like for stage performers, they would say break a leg.
Break a
And
leg.
a lot of performers have. So, say something instead like save a heart, no,
Yeah.
save a heart, and all these other things we say that are not really that good of sayings, and say precisely what you mean to say. And then also realize that most people, their brain is just constantly, it's like deafening in. Well, there's like two voices going. You got a good ego and a bad ego, and mostly the bad ego is going for most people. I don't like that person because look at that, and look at the way they do this, and I don't like that, and oh man, she's really really pretty, and I don't look like, so I don't want to hang around with her.
Oh,
And so it's
it's
it's learning to
crazy.
get. It takes a lot of time, but it's learning to get your mind quiet. What Carlos Castaneda said: stop the internal dialogue. So it's amazing when you stop that and you merge with everything everywhere, all of God's creation, and
Mm.
you start getting quiet. You can't, people don't hear God because how are they going to hear a quiet voice from within with a You know? So you gotta get quiet to hear it, and then you'll
Yeah.
hear it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I know that you are very expert in a lot of like the martial art practices that you do, and which is so beautiful on so many levels, and that you also have, perfected this kind of quiet of the mind, your meditation. In closing, because we've been going over an hour, it's always so fun to talk to you. Could you give maybe a couple of tips on how people could come into more of a meditative state?
Yes. So a technique that's really easy to use is to go up to a tree, close your eyes, you know, might want to, if it's a pine tree, look at where you're putting your hands on it. So there's sap. You don't want to get sap. That stuff's hard to get off. Put your hands on it, close your eyes, and reach with your heart and your mind quietly into the tree. Feel the tree. Smell the tree. Hear the sounds of the wind and the leaves or the pine needles, and then you'll be amazed. You'll feel the roots down into the roots and the cilia that's connecting other trees, and you'll feel it communing and giving energy and nutrients to other trees and receiving them. And you can open your eyes and go, I didn't even know there was a tree there behind me, or over there, or 20 feet over there, or 20 meters over there, or and then close your eyes and keep doing that, and just keep your mind quiet and listen, and you'll find that your spine will straighten up, and you'll get, literally, as you get quiet and you merge your tree talking, in other words, you'll feel the tree actually give you its name, and you'll feel the tree, the straightness of the tree and the structure of the tree and the form, and you'll feel slowing down of your reality, because they experience things at a much slower, drawn out rate. And you'll feel a goosebumps come over you as they take and give you energy and compassion and love, and because you're taking the time to be there for them. So that's a really good way, is just get with nature. Another one is to sit beside a stream or a river and unfocus your eyes and look above the river and into the river and around the river, and merge yourself into the flow of the river. And you'll find you can feel it going up until all the tributaries that feed into it are just little trickles coming out of snowbanks or the ground, or a little spring or something, all the way to the ocean. And you can actually, if it's clean, you can actually, about 2 feet above the river, of the water, if your eyes are unfocused and you're not thinking anything, you're just feeling the energy of the clean water, you'll see what look like clear horseshoe crabs skating on the energy of the river. There's an energy that is about 2 feet above the river, and they skate on it. And so many things that people don't know about. They don't witness creation. They're been told what to believe and what's there, what's not there. And animals see this all the time. Animals experience things because they don't have that. And people telling, well, that's not real, and there's no little people there, and there's no this, and there's no deva there, and that's not an elf, and that's not this, and those are not real, and this is not that, and this is this, and this is like that. They don't have that. So, like, my wife's dog, when she was a pup, she would play with the little people in our house. And you see cameras of people, their dogs barking at something, and you look at the camera, there's nothing there, unless you focus your eyes the way the dog does, and you've shut down the internal dialogue, and you'll see what the dog's barking at. And her dog also was, uh, well, always has been very, very sensitive to demonics, and I call darkies. And so, like, there would be parties, would be at, out somewhere. We went down into San Rafael Swell. This group was getting ready to raft down this, stream. And there was this one guy that was the leader of the group, bunch of teenager group, and her dog went crazy. It was just, we gotta go. I go, I know. It's okay, honey. We're leaving. It's okay. We're turning around right now, because she sees the darkies and she doesn't want anything to do with them. The guy was swarming with them. You got little tiny ones that look like little dark shadows just all over the guy's skin, moving all over the place and around, and his energy field, his aura, and all that. And so, when people, most of people's their bad ego, all that, blah, 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 and I don't like this, and I don't like that. That's the bad ego, and that is not your thoughts. Those are demonics and other nice being, not good beings telling you, talking, and you think that's you. You've learned to think that's you. So it behooves you to clean that stuff out anyway and go into the beauty of things and realize that all things are created to God. So as you get very adept at this, you could sit in a trash pile or a garbage heap and just smell the smells and all of this and relax and merge with it and experience it as part of God's creation and hear the frequencies and the sounds and see the energy vibrations and all of that, because everything is part of God. And so it's experiencing that creation to where you let go of judgment, you know, to where you can meditate anywhere at any time. So like when I was in Phoenix, when I first retired, about 3 years after I retired, my mom had me come up to help take care of her husband and had his third heart attack. And I was staying in a room that I was paying for with a lady who had a taiko group, taiko drumming. And her and her student were, I was tired. We just got back. My student was her student. My martial arts student was learning taiko from her. And I was just had a room there and he had a room somewhere else. I think, I don't know where he was staying. But anyway, they were going to play drums. And I said, and I laid down on the couch in the living room. And he said, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to meditate and go to sleep." He goes, "While we're playing drums." I mean, these drums are, 2 meters in diameter. And but I go, "Yeah, you're going to sleep and meditate during that." Yes, you should be able to sleep and meditate in anything,
Yeah.
anywhere, anytime. And I have been lucid dreaming since the 70s. So I taught myself how to lucid dream. So I really, most of the time, I can't completely tell when I'm asleep anymore and when I'm awake. It's such a
Mm.
smooth transition. I don't know when I go from thinking in my mind of certain things like, breathing and focusing on the sound of God's word, of the ek, and then being asleep and I start to dream something and I think I'm thinking it till I realize, oh, I'm dreaming. And and I pick dreams often. I choose to go back to dreams that I've had back when I was 8 years old that are still going, because people don't realize your dreams you're creating or participating, one of the two or both, in a reality, because there's only one original thinker, which is God, and everything God thinks is real somewhere, someplace, sometime. So you can go and pick up, a dream that you had when you were 8, 6, 4 years old. And it may be thousands of years later because time moves at a much higher rate in most dream state. So it's very, very interesting. So, another thing that's really good is to learn your dreams, because demonics take over you in dreams big time, as does the stuff from the jab that puts you into the cloud. So you can monitor your dreams and learn what are your dreams and which dreams you want and which dreams you can into dreams. So the way to do that is at some point realize you're dreaming. Pick a dream to have, and then you're in that dream, pick a point to stop and look at your hands. It took me 2 years, but once you do it the first time, then it goes faster and faster to where you're flying around. I used to, fly from out to Paris and fly over Paris, and astral project, in other words. But and then I learned to soul project beyond that because I don't like the astral realm particularly. So it's just a thing to really good way to learn to unify yourself, your conscious, your subconscious, your unconscious minds. Unconscious is a whole nother level, and that I would have to have somebody as a martial arts student. That's where you can control your heart rate, your bleeding, your perspiration, all that, your pupil dilation, your autonomic nervous system. So there's some tips.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And again, so important for everyone to really, create the tools, have the tools to help themselves to heal this trauma in this body, in this life they're in, to have that clarity and to really recognize that they are so magnificent. They are so clever. I think we're the best technology on the planet, us humans. And this is our timeline. This is our time to fly and
Yes.
come together, and create the world that we want. So, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Gene Decode, again for your time. And thank you for sharing galactic federations being infiltrated, Ashtar Command, and breaking information down like you did. It's very important, sharing the space meat on Ganymede, and the way that space folds. Just so fascinating in describing some of the beings that you've connected to, and especially your Leonore, which was lovely to hear about. I really enjoyed hearing about that. So, any final words for the audience in closing? Are you open to anyone connecting with you? Obviously, I'll put your website underneath, but anything in particular that we left on the table?
No, I think we're pretty much good. We covered a lot of things. I've covered other things this week in an earlier interview, so I've covered those already. I hadn't covered much of these before. A lot of them I haven't covered before, so I think we're pretty good for what we covered and what we went through. And, it's a pretty good time length, so I think we're good there.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you, Gene Decode, again. Always good to, like I said, spend time with you. Very grateful to you. And to the beautiful audience, I am Denny Henderson, and just stay strong, focus on yourself, focus on your healing. Don't get caught up in the drama. Just try and stay centered. And I send you my love from my heart to yours, and I will see you all soon. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Danny. God bless.
God bless.